but let's continue. Let's get to little Rhonda. Ron DeSantis, ladies and gentlemen, has now fired his campaign manager. What is going on? What is going on in the Ron DeSantis camp?
Reporting of another shakeup in Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign. Just this morning, NBC News learned the Florida governor has replaced his campaign manager in what marks another major change within the DeSantis camp. I want to bring back Vaughn Hilliard, live from New Hampshire. Vaughn, good morning. It's good to see you again. But what more can you tell us about this DeSantis campaign shakeup?
This is the latest difficult bump for Ron DeSantis' fledgling presidential campaign. He has continued to be seen as the chief rival to Donald Trump, but he continues to be down 20, 30 points in national polling. This latest move, the ousting of the campaign manager, she will stay on the team, but will serve as the chief strategist, is notable because they are elevating the chief of staff from the governor's official Florida office. This individual has been with him for years now and is officially joining the campaign to serve as the campaign manager. They're also bringing on board a new deputy campaign manager, David Polyansky, who had previously been working on Never Back Down, the DeSantis-aligned super PAC. Polyansky is one of the former veterans of the Ted Cruz presidential campaign. He once ran Joni Ernst's Senate bid in 2014 in Iowa. He knows the state well. This shakeup, though, is notable because just 2 weeks ago, they laid off more than 40% of the staff. We are still here in the heart of summer. He hasn't even been to the Iowa State Fair, and yet his campaign has not only had to lay off a significant number of staff, but is now changing the very top of their organizational chart here for any company, let alone a campaign. That is a difficult position to be in. But in the exclusive interview that our Dasha Burns had with Ron DeSantis over the weekend, she specifically asked him about the hiccups that his campaign has faced so far. And in that interview, Ron DeSantis said it would be too many to count the number of times that he had been doubted over the course of his career. And this is the latest episode. He is still very much in this. This
lady glazed, my man, okay? I know she had some questions that were like subtly contentious, but we were covering this interview yesterday, and I will cover it again because I think that I didn't do a decent enough job looking at it. But it honestly was, it was shocking. Like when little Rhonda, for example, was saying that, his solution to the border crisis is to just like murk babies or anyone with a satchel at the border, because that means automatically that these are babies that the cartel purchased so they can like cross the border, shit like that. He said a bunch of unhinged shit. One of the funniest things he, of course, said was that the election was, of course, not stolen, sorry. The election was, of course, lost. Donald Trump lost the election in the worst, lamest ways possible. Okay? Those babies knew what they signed up for. Hell yeah, brother.
Still tens of millions of dollars between the super PAC and within his campaign operation.
Most important part of the Ron DeSantis interview, Felix appearance is today. I just need to figure out when he's coming. Let's find the transcript. Let's pull it up. Transcript. What was it? Like lost? Oh, here. So where is it?
The election. If the election is a referendum on Joe Biden's policies and the failures that we've seen, and we are presenting a positive vision for the future, we will win the presidency and we will have a chance to turn the country around. If, on the other hand, the election is not about January 20th, 2025, but January 6th, 2021, or what document was left by the toilet at Mar-a-Lago, if it's a referendum on that, we are going to lose.
But
and that's just the reality.
So what's funny about this is that he has literally done that, okay? You've done that, brother. You constantly talk about it. You constantly defend Donald Trump.
You know, with Trump in the race, that is largely what it's going to be about. And right now,
And
you're
that's
not fighting against Joe Biden. You're fighting against
that's
Trump.
That's not a pathway for success for the Republican Party. I think a lot of our voters understand that. Look, one of the reasons.
His face emotes too much, and like in a gross way. Like he's constantly bobbling like a bobblehead, and that shit is so nasty. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I just have like a very cringe reaction to any kind of camera opportunity I have where I experience Ron DeSantis. I don't like it. Like, that's right. Hello? We need to make sure the election is about the issues and not about Trump's toilet paper. And it's like who? Who the fuck? Who's going to look at this and go, damn, that's my charismatic leader right there, dog? When has elections in the United States of America ever been about issues, man? What are you, fucking crazy? You're a Republican. What are you saying? Republicans are like the number one non-issue guys. The entire mechanism for winning elections for Republicans revolves around voter suppression and making non-issues into the most important issue to churn out single-issue voters. The culture wars. It's wedge issues. It's stuff that has no real bearing on your existence unless you are, of course, part of the impacted minority group that is going to receive the shitty end of that bargain. Like, yeah, he's literally suing Bud Light because they don't hate trans people. It's so dumb, which, by the way, they do. Like, you are not doing the right thing. Culture wars are supposed to simply be a thing that you say. It's not supposed to be actual legislation. Only the most insane freaks want real, tangible, legislative agenda items that make it illegal for a company to work with trans people, okay? It's all of those groiped up Zoomers that he has hired that love putting the Sonnenrad in their campaign ads that want that sort of thing, and they have completely clouded his judgment. The best Republican is one that, does the regular things that he's supposed to do: deregulation, tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations. But on issues of culture war, you're just supposed to sometimes do it, like every now and then. Just give a little tease. Look at Donald Trump. Abortion was a major issue for years and years and years, a major issue. Right? Even though 75% of Americans believe that Roe v. Wade was precedent that should remain. What happened? Donald Trump got 3 Supreme Court picks, and then they turned around and utilized that supermajority to eviscerate abortion protections at the Supreme Court, overturning what they considered to be a super precedent. The fallout from that is clear. It was supposed to be a profoundly successful Republican midterm, and it turned into nothingness because the conversation was on abortion. When Republicans move beyond utilizing culture war issues and actually enact their nefarious agendas, a lot of people start recognizing the cruelty of said agenda and no longer feel as comfortable arguing on behalf of it, other than the very freaks that are going out to Planned Parenthoods, the sweaty gremlins that stand outside of Planned Parenthoods to scream at teenagers who are trying to get a pap smear or trying to get, some kind of STI test or trying to get an abortion. Okay? Those people are insane. You cannot win a national election, not win a general election with just a coalition that you've put together with people like that. If your entire proposal as a Republican revolves around being cruel to marginalized groups, then you can't actually act out those cruel desires openly. Because the inevitable fallout from experiencing the cruelty that the Republican legislative body is subjecting marginalized groups to is going to cause you to lose elections. It's going to cost the election for you. Ron DeSantis has not seen that for some reason and thinks that what really threw people off about Donald Trump was his rhetoric. And it's actually the exact opposite. What made Trump was his incredible ability to read the room and also his awesome ability to communicate the anger that people in the crowd felt and direct it towards the same vectors of anger that the Republican Party has been developing, the same red herrings like immigrants, gay people, feminists, whatever, for years. And now he's doing the exact opposite. He doesn't have Trump's rhetoric because he can't, because he's not as telegenic as Trump. And he thinks it's actually follow through that matters. Like, absolutely not. If that was the case, Trump wouldn't be so beloved. He didn't build the wall, which Ron DeSantis and his idiotic ass also brought up. He didn't lock up Hillary Clinton. Right? There were plenty of promises that Trump made in the campaign trail that he didn't follow through on. Doesn't matter. And they still love him. They love him because he is charismatic. Not charismatic to you and I, or maybe he is charismatic to you and I because he's charismatic to me, but charismatic to the average American. Trump did all of those things? What do you mean? Trump's border wall wasn't necessarily a real border wall. It was just like rebuilding certain parts of the wall that already existed. What are you talking about? It's still porous. Doesn't matter. What are you talking about? That wall was already in place. Hillary Clinton is not in jail. That was a major talking point in the campaign. The swamp never got drained. What do you mean? And yet, in spite of all of that, Trump was a very successful Republican president. Like, not Ronald Reagan levels of success, but still up there. Probably almost as successful as Ronald Reagan. Couldn't even repeal Obamacare. So, after all of that, why do people still love him? Why does he still have like 90%, near 90% of support in the Republican Party? Which never deviated, by the way, during his presidency when he wasn't fulfilling his promises. Why? Because he played the culture war game perfectly. Amazon Piss Bottle, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. He owned the libs. Libs couldn't stand him. He made the libs mad. The culture war stuff works well when libs are getting mad. You want to be the cool, charismatic, funny guy who makes jokes about the nerd in the room. You don't want to be the school bully. You don't want to be the playground bully that's actually beating the shit out of like random onlookers. I've said this time and time again. There is a important study. I forget what year it was conducted. I should find it. I wonder if I can. There was a study conducted on Democratic and Republican Party voters. And they asked the Republican Party voters about Republican policy positions and whether they believed that that was what the Republican Party was actually trying to do. And the majority of Republicans did not believe that the Republican Party was actually pushing those points of legislation, that they actually were. When asked why, they said, oh, that's far too cruel. Republican policy positions, like actual Republican policy prescriptions, are so cruel and so unusual that Republican voters and conservatives across the board don't even believe that that's what they actually stand for. Do you understand? How do you make sense of that? It could have been this one, maybe. Is it? God, it's data for progress. The majority of voters think that the Democrats want to protect the health insurance of those with pre-existing conditions, and a plurality think Republicans will. Over 70% of all voters know the Democratic Party supports expanding Medicaid. Almost 40% of Republicans think their party supports expanding Medicaid. Over 80% of voters think the Democratic Party supports a $15 minimum wage, which is wrong. They don't. 30% of Republican voters think their party supports a $15 minimum wage. Also wrong, but even more wrong somehow. Oh my God. A majority of Republicans think their party opposes the elimination of the stream protection rule, which prevented coal companies from dumping mining debris into local streams. Political science scientist E.E. Schlatt-Schneider argued that democracy is unthinkable save in terms of the parties. For Schlatt-Schneider, parties solved an information problem that arises with advanced post-industrial society. Put simply, the kinds and quantity of policies that arise are such complexity and scale that no one person could ever hope to know enough to make an informed voting decision. The parties then are to work as heuristics. With their platforms, they work to simplify the great issues of the day. But this metric by which we are to judge their relative success, they have evidently failed. As for why Republican voters in particular don't see a difference between the two major parties, there are many causes. Motivated reasoning likely plays a large role. If a Republican voter doesn't think mining companies should dump debris into a stream, why would they think their elected representative would support this policy? Another great example of this is amnesty provisions. Another moment of clarity is something that we already experienced. 75% of Americans, which means a tremendous number of Republicans as well, believe in protecting Roe v. Wade. You are supposed to play on a delicate tightrope. And the moment that you fall off that rope, the moment that where you show your hand and the actual cruelty of your legislation is for all to experience, like criminalizing abortion instantaneously after the Roe v. Wade decision, all of a sudden, everybody recognizes, oh, wait, no, the Republicans aren't actually on board with this. I don't like that. The entire point of the culture war, the entire point of wedge issues, which are carefully crafted, are to dangle them as a carrot. never to actually give the carrot to the person. Because when you do that, well, then people realize, oh man, carrots are kind of gross, I guess, in this situation. Okay? You're not supposed to eat the carrot. You're supposed to run towards it. It's a double whammy because not only do you lose the carrot that you were using as a way to mobilize your base of support, but now people are living in a world, in a universe, where they recognize the negative consequences of your legislative agenda. But even when they accidentally execute, like in Roe v. Wade, Republicans are so good at misinformation and smoke and mirrors that the voter base doesn't shift. That's not true at all. That's not true at all. Republicans have a really hard battle. That is the reason why currently there's this, is Trump going to be the next candidate, or is it Ron DeSantis, or is it someone else battle happening inside of the Republican Party? But that battle is actually a much larger one. Republicans are victims of their own success. You're not supposed to actually deliver on the horrifying legislative agenda because Republicans get abortions too. Okay? It's exactly like the dog that caught the car. The dog chases the car. What the fuck's the dog going to do when he actually catches the car? What the dog doing? Most importantly, Republicans have lost a solid base of suburban, upper middle class voters. Those people are very important for elections because American elections are not about like actually getting the maximum number of people to come out and vote for you. Come on. That's why we have the Electoral College. You have to target people who actually vote. You know who votes? Rich people. People in the suburbs. You cannot create a winning coalition by simply trying to build a reactionary base of support by tapping into single issue voters that live in like rural areas. There's not enough people. There was a thing that I believe Chuck Schumer said a couple years back. Let me see if I can find it. He said something along the lines of, for every blue-collar worker that we lose in a rural area, we gain 2 suburban voters. And I remember getting so mad at that. I remember getting so mad at that sentiment. So gross. So frustrating. It was a sentiment that I thought was completely false as well. I thought it was false at the time because, yeah, you said it was about Pennsylvania and we lost to Trump. That was part of the reason why I thought it was false. And I also think it is objectionable because you should not be losing the base of support in the blue-collar middle class, you should not throw working class Americans, you should not throw them to the side because you want to win elections. Okay? Now, the unfortunate reality, however, is if you have simply one interest and one interest in mind, and that is to make sure that Democrats win elections, it wasn't wrong. The only moral abortion is my abortion is a well-known phenomenon. Conservatives, especially religious ones, are very comfortable with hypocrisy. We know that they're comfortable with hypocrisy. But here's the reality, Mike. When you live in a red area and your daughter needs to get an abortion and you're a conservative voter and now she's terrified, or when you are a Republican and you're a Republican voter year over year and all of a sudden you have an ectopic pregnancy and your fucking doctor can't terminate because they're terrified, it don't matter. It don't matter. The hypocrisy goes away. So what you're saying is correct with respect to the only moral abortion is my abortion, as long as it's accessible. And it was never really accessible in red areas, but they didn't care because they were rich enough, clearly. They didn't make a bigger deal about it. They didn't think about the trap laws, right? Like, they didn't think about all the red tape that made it so difficult to actually have abortion clinics in, in Republican states. But ultimately, for an ectopic pregnancy or for an abortion, you could always find somewhere to go. An abortion clinic that's far away, but yet still an abortion clinic without the fear that you would be punished by the law. Once that shifted, and you were directly facing legal repercussions for this medical procedure that is an absolute necessity for your survival in many cases, it's done. Here's the Chuck Schumer quote. Oh, you found it?
This is the second point, for every blue-collar Democrat we will lose in Western PA, we will pick up 2, 3 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And you can repeat that in Ohio and Illinois.
He's not necessarily wrong about this take. He's not wrong. But this take relies on the Republican Party fucking up and actually giving the game away and actually pushing for cruel measures. There is a tremendous amount of harm that the American people now have to experience for this idiotic idea to come to fruition. Now, of course, it still came to fruition. It's coming to fruition now, but it still doesn't matter. It's disgusting that you're openly and cynically saying it. No, he's wrong because it doesn't fucking work. Well, if it did not work, you would not see it exactly as KFish is saying in Arizona and Georgia. It's not going to work in Ohio. It's not going to work in Pennsylvania. Well, Pennsylvania might be a little different this time around as well, but it's working in a lot of areas that you did not think it was going to work, specifically red areas or previously red areas. Okay? You get it? Speaking of Ohio, I will obviously cover issue 1 today, which is crazy. Like, such a great example of just like the flagrantly anti-democratic nature of the Republican Party, especially. Like, this shows how the Democratic Party operates, okay? In a disgusting manner. They do not care about the lives that they're ruining by allowing, it's very mask off, by allowing the Republican Party to behave in violent ways because they, in their minds, are making a mental calculation that is better for them to win elections without really doing anything. Because if you do something, then all of a sudden you're going against the real people that you care about, your real constituents, your corporate benefactors, right? And it also requires the Republican Party to extend their hand, over leverage themselves, and actually act out on some of their more violent desires. But it's a perfect example of how Ohio and the Ohio Republicans, and just like national Republicans across the board, are so disgusting. Early voting here in Ohio, and had only one weekend for early voting, and staffing multiple places minimal. Yeah, except in spite of all of those hurdles, which are, of course, a norm now in American elections, the reality is, it seems like early voting has been incredible for Ohio, in spite of what you are describing. There's a lot of complicated stuff going on. I think the main issue is that while the upper middle class going Democrat is helpful for midterms, the biggest growth potential for new voters is among the working class and young. Lots of them don't vote and lean left. I know, but the other side of this, Mike, is that, I mean, you can say the Democratic Party has never made a serious attempt to activate these people, but there are people in the Democratic Party who have tried and have failed. The real argument here for the Democratic Party's incompetence, in my opinion, is about losing out on the Hispanic vote and losing out on the black vote. Okay? These two, well, the Hispanic vote is different, but especially the black voter base have been the most reliable voter base for the Democratic Party, historically speaking, post-civil rights movement. Okay? And the reality is that in places like Texas, the Republicans have done a very good job. Texas GOP has done a very good job of just hammering in culture war issues to a Hispanic base of support that allows them to keep maintaining the majorities they need in places like that, when we know that in spite of the Hispanic vote not being a solid voter bloc in a similar way as the African-American voter bloc is, right? Because of geographic location differences and the fact that like it's born out of migration and it completely depends on which region someone is coming from and what kind of prior political opinions they have. The Hispanic voter bloc has certain concepts, like the Latino voting bloc has certain concepts that they are infinitely more favorable towards, regardless of the demographics, the age demographics. And I am, of course, talking about fiscally progressive economic policies. There is no other voter bloc in the United States of America that openly says, even with the most massaged, the most disingenuous talking point, they say they want bigger government. Okay? The Latino voting bloc loves big government, wants bigger government. They want bigger government. They hate all the, abortion, gay stuff. They don't like all that because they're, hardline Catholics. So the Texas GOP relies on the Democratic Party's incompetence, or rather lack of care, on actually communicating any kind of strong government initiative, and hammers on the Catholicism angle like crazy. And it's been very successful. Not all Latinos want bigger government, and the Democratic Party already wins about 65% of them. Yeah, keep being comfortable thinking that you will continue getting those numbers with the Latino vote, as those numbers have actually, in prior years, and this is a very important part of this conversation that people are forgetting, in previous years, the Latino voter bloc and the black voter bloc would certainly hemorrhage in support of the Democratic Party. It was going down, right? There was a trend line that is like definitely going down. Okay? But something really scary for the Democratic Party's future prospects has been happening. And it's not that black people are no longer choosing to vote and they're just like saying, I'm not voting, fuck this shit. Some black voters are actually voting for the Republican Party. That is new. Okay? That is new. Because the Republican Party relies on racial agitation as a way to galvanize its white voter base. Do you understand? That is a dramatic shift that spells trouble for the Democratic Party. Think about it. The Republican Party's attitude towards black voters has historically been, let's do everything we can to stop them from voting. both parties race bait? What do you mean? Yes, they certainly do. But in the opposing directions, silly chatter. Yes, the Democratic Party says, oh, Black Lives Matter. I'm going to wear the kente cloth. Please, I love you. Please, black people, vote for me. Keep voting for me. And then they don't do shit when it comes down to like genuinely improving the material conditions of black voters or black people in general in the United States of America. The Republican Party does the exact opposite, where they're like, they're all thugs, they're all welfare queens, they're all criminals, they're angry all the time, they're violent all the time, they're coming into your suburbs, and they're going to fuck your wife. They're both doing some kind of, racial communication. It's just in the exact opposite direction. If you look at that situation and you go, well, this is exactly the same, I don't know what to tell you. I feel like the younger voter bloc is honestly just waiting for Democrats to do anything whatsoever. I see a lot of my friends just have the attitude, it doesn't matter, nothing will happen. All they need to do is like say, fuck it, cancel student debt, and it would bring out young voters. Absolutely. Another poll that the New York Times conducted was, it showed that it was like a 43-43 deadlock between Donald Trump and Joe Biden if they were to become the candidates. Obviously, Joe Biden is, and it seems like Donald Trump will be as well. And there was a base of young voters, primarily young voters of color, okay, that would make up the 14% or 17%, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to get the numbers wrong. That literally were just like, I voted for Joe Biden. Don't really feel like it anymore. I don't know what's going on. I don't care enough. It seems like these guys aren't really doing much. And if that undecided but completely aware of both candidates, this is a very important distinction, because in a lot of instances, undecided voters are maybe finding out about the candidates for the first time. This is not that situation because the election already happened in 2020. If the people are the same people, then you would expect in normal circumstances for the undecided voters to vote in the same exact way that they voted in the last election, in the last general election. Those undecided voters can be activated. Student loan debt relief would be a major factor in their consideration. When you say it definitely makes me feel sick thinking I have to vote for Joe Biden again, my friend, you are not alone. In our demographics, in the age group that watches me on Twitch, there are a lot of people that feel exactly like you do. And that is an understandable feeling to have. I really think that Matt Christman is onto something when he says that people don't think of politics as actually able to make people's lives better, just a way of punishing or controlling people they don't like. Yeah, I don't think that's wrong. I think it's a very cynical way to look at it, but I think that that cynicism exists in the heart of every American, because at this point, you know that they're not going to do anything. You know that like neither party is really going to get anything across except for like the actually incredibly cruel legislation the Republican Party sometimes accidentally pushes for. Pushes a little too hard on. So yeah, if you have nothing, if you know damn well through all of your experiences as a new voter that voted maybe one election cycle, 2 election cycles, you already recognize, yeah, the Democratic Party didn't do shit for me. Why the fuck should I vote? Or if you're still a voter, if you're still like a diehard Democrat voter, you're like, well, Democratic Party's not doing all the things that I want and none of the things that they're promising. So maybe they'll just like piss off the Republicans, which is inherently a reactionary way to vote. Spite-driven voting. That is the entire purpose. That is the entire reason why Republicans vote. And now Democrats are also gearing up for that as well. Because all matter of electoral politics in America are run on wedge issues now. I mean, think about it. Donald Trump is running to the left of the institutional Republican Party representative Ron DeSantis. He is cutting ads that primarily communicate that Ron DeSantis wants to cut Medicare. Ron DeSantis wants to cut entitlements. Are you kidding me? That is unheard of. That is actual policy that the Republican Party has worked so hard to secretly enact. Like, I've spent so much time in Vienna. They have massive rent control. 70% of the people live in social public housing. Public transit is everywhere. Fuck, the largest housing building is literally called Karl Marx Hof, and it's rated the most livable city in the world for decades, and Americans think all of what I just said is impossible. I know. I was talking to a normie earlier today, as a matter of fact, on this precise same issue. People in the American political discourse, like media apparatus, rarely ever recognize the existence of Europe and European cities, because they think like national health care. What? That's crazy. It's like, well, how do they do it? That could never happen. Social housing. Oh, what do you mean? That would never work. It's how they're doing it. They're doing it. It's not like it doesn't work. It's not like it's magic. Europe is not a magic place. They never consider it. Like, even if your goal is not immediately, permanent first world genocide now, even if you're not like a JD Pong guy, okay? And you're running around being like, I want to take over American military bases and destroy the imperial core from within, or whatever the fuck, okay? Even if you're thinking like, well, through reforms, you can at least like greatly improve the conditions for the American labor movement to thrive, and also, create an opportunity, create an environment where at least there are some social amenities that all Americans can enjoy to a certain degree that will genuinely improve the living conditions of every single person. Okay? Even if that's your argument, they go, you're a socialist, communist piece of shit. Fuck you. You want to literally hang every small business owner upside down. You want to kill every landlord that you can find. Dumb as fuck. You want people to eat rats like Venezuela. Anyway, can't believe we got all the way over here because I was trying to show you a little Rhonda clip. The reason why I took this, the reason why I sidestepped into the Republican voter base and what they understand and what they don't understand about their own personal politics is because Ron DeSantis has it backwards. He's putting the cart before the horse. You are not supposed to damage businesses like Disney, even if they're fucking woke businesses, by using big government initiatives and government overreach to punish them for culture war battles that you're fighting. The culture war battles are supposed to be there so that you can distract away from the actual purpose of why you are elected, which is to deregulate so that companies, no matter if they're gay or trans or whatever the fuck, as long as they're making billions of dollars, are deregulated and can continue to operate and generate value for their shareholders. That is the main purpose of the culture war. So if you become a culture warrior and get lost in the sauce and actually try to enact like fascist policies or whatever, some of which means you're going to regulate corporations, well, Americans are geared against that. You've done something now that goes against the very heart of Republican politics. It's dumb. You can't hurt the bottom line. as a culture warrior. Trump didn't do that. Trump also had the wherewithal to recognize, like in North Carolina, the bathroom bill failing and the backlash to that. So he said, I don't give a shit where Caitlyn Jenner pisses or shits, as long as she's at Trump Tower. Now, that attitude has definitely shifted in the Republican Party's base of support because of the diligent, agitative propaganda that they've engaged in that has turned some of the more zealot supporters of the Republican Party into actual psychotic terrorists. Think that there are trans people lurking in the fucking shadows, that they think that their cash register is actually trans secretly. They think their parents might be trans secretly. You know what I mean? They're just basically destroying their brains by doing too much Facebook, doing too much internet. Those are not, that is not a big enough constituency to win a general election. Those people are gross. They're too smarmy. They're too passionate about ridiculous issues. They constantly talk about the genitalia of children, right? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. Calm down. Everybody agrees that pedophiles are bad, for example. But if you have dedicated your fucking life like to consistently talking about pedo hunting, and you're constantly like, maybe even you're LARPing as like a young boy to try and find pedophiles in the wild and doing all of that, okay? At that point, you're kind of weird. You're a weirdo. You're a bit of a weird guy. You don't want to be around that guy. You're like, what the fuck? All right, dude, chill out. Ew, gross. I don't want to think about this all the goddamn time. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we agree. Pedophiles are bad. Fucking, what's wrong with you? You don't want, like the Republican Party thinks like, no, you don't understand. Okay? Those are the real voters. Those are the fucking real voters. Those are the guys who are going to go out and vote. It's like, there's not enough of them, and you're grossing out the moderate suburban voters that do actually go out and vote. Of course, the other side of this equation is that a lot of those pedo hunter style Republicans are literally pedophiles and have served prison sentences for endangering children or, you know, doing pedophile shit, which is always kind of dark but hilarious nonetheless. But these are some of the reasons why this issue is not simply a Ron DeSantis versus Donald Trump issue. It is a Republican Party issue. Okay? Across the board. They don't know what to do. They're trapped in their own primaries where they constantly have to go super far to the right. But if you do that, in the general election, you have to reconfigure your strategy and come across as a little bit more reasonable. Like, yeah, those guys are a little gross, right? Come on, it's fine. We're not like that. And that is a very hard problem to solve. Let's take a look at how Ron DeSantis is trying to solve one additional problem here. When faced with the question, give me a yes or no answer, did Donald Trump actually win the election? Here's what he had to say.
I ran for president was because I think I'm the only candidate who can win the primary, win the general, and then actually get all this stuff done. The reality is you don't want distractions I mean, this is hard enough, the issues facing the country. You've got to be focused. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to go in there knowing you want to talk about slaying the administrative state. They are not going to give up power willingly. You got to be somebody that knows how to operate. You can't be suffering under distractions. You can't have all this other drama that's doing it. So I have made that point, and I think more and more Republican voters agree, yes, we think he's been treated poorly and unfairly, but that doesn't mean then that he's the guy you want to nominate against Joe Biden.
So you recently said the election is what it is. You said all those theories that were put out did not prove to be true. So can we just put this to bed so you don't have to be asked about this a million more times? Yes or no, did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Whoever puts their hand on the Bible on January 20th every 4 years is the winner. And I don't think the election, and I've pointed out in that same quote, and I've said this.
Look at him. He's just like trying so desperately to be like, yes, Joe Biden won, while simultaneously being like, but it was like cheated and stolen.
From the very beginning, when they changed the rules for COVID, I think that was wrong. I think some of those changes were unconstitutional. When they do mass mail ballots, I think that's wrong. I think ballot harvesting is wrong.
You guys want to know something crazy? I looked this up yesterday. In the state of Florida, which he is the governor of, which he won an election recently, the gubernatorial race happened, right? Are you ready for this? Fucking insane. More than 82% of Florida's ballots were cast early or by mail. Brother, how is this any different than Marjorie Taylor Greene being like, the election was stolen? And then someone asks her, okay, but you were on the ballot too. Do you think, like, you know, the election was stolen for you? She's like, no. Actually, I don't know. They're like, wait, so what happened really? So you're saying that the election was stolen, there was so much cheating, but you won on that same ballot. Mass mail voting is wrong because it means the undesirables vote. I mean, he's trying to say that, but he is in the state that does mass mail voting.
I think the Zuckerbucks were wrong. I think the fact that the FBI was working with Facebook and these other tech companies to censor the Hunter Biden story was wrong. And so I don't think it was the perfect election. I remember after a lot of the media was saying this is the most secure election in history. How could it be the most secure with those millions of mail ballots going out? At the same time, after the election, they were talking about Maduro stealing votes on the voting machines or whatever, and none of those theories proved to be true. But here's the issue that I think is important for Republican voters to think about. Why did we have all those mail votes? Because of Trump turned the government over to Fauci. They embraced lockdowns. They did the CARES Act, which funded mail-in ballots across the country. Donald Trump signed that bill that
He's saying Donald Trump actually is a supporter of the provisions that caused him to lose, which again is infinitely more difficult an argument to make, okay, if you're also simultaneously running against him and saying that he lost the election. You're saying cheating happened and that's good. They cheated and that's good. I'm glad that they cheated and defeated Donald Trump. It makes no sense. It's so stupid. Like, if this is the tightrope that you have to walk on and this is the best you got, you're cooked. Is there a point where he might yell Trump is woke? He might. And that is so painfully Democrat. You guys, he is behaving exactly like Hillary Clinton. Democrats always try to triangulate and hit an avenue, an angle that is inherently center-right. Okay? They always try to do this. It's the John Kerry Swift boat situation. It's the John Kerry is a veteran, George W. Bush never served dynamic. They have failed time and time again to outflank the Republicans from the right. They can't do that. Republicans own patriotism. Okay? And in that same way, you cannot outflank Donald Trump from the right unless you are charismatic enough and you have been able to capture that same audience's attention in the way that Donald Trump has been able to. If you can't do that, then no matter what you say, they're gonna look at you like you're a fucking clown. Why is Hillary liked? Hillary is so disliked that a fucking socialist almost won the Democratic primary in 2016. That is how intensely disliked Hillary Clinton was, by Democrats nonetheless. So much so that if you look at Bernie Sanders' performance against Joe Biden, a corpse, it was objectively worse than his performance against Hillary Clinton. That is how intensely disliked Hillary Clinton was, and that is how bad the Democratic Party is, that they put her up as the main candidate because it was her time, okay? In spite of the fact that this was the most important election of our lifetimes. Just like this is the most important election of our lifetimes now in 2024. And who do we have? If Donald Trump is the all-encompassing evil deity that we say he is, then what are we doing? We got this carcass that we're wheeling around to go up against him. At a certain point, you got to sit back and say, well, if this is the most important election of our lifetimes, like, what the fuck are you doing? You think it's adequate that we rolled out Joe Biden then? Like, you think that was a good thing then? That's crazy.
Funded the mail ballots that all the Republicans have been so concerned about. And also with the censorship of the Hunter Biden. That was Donald Trump's FBI that was working with that. He didn't have control over his...
You think you can outflank Trump on hating Hunter Biden? Like, are you out of your mind, dude? What are you doing? This is so... Dude, Ron DeSantis is literally a Democrat. Ron the Democrat. Oh my God, that's such a good... Dude, Trump needs to hire me. Trump, sir, Mr. President, please hire me, okay? I got you. Ron the Democrat. Ron DeSantis. He's Kamala Harris. He's Hillary Clinton. He is a fucking Democrat. He is. He behaves like a Democrat. This is so Elizabeth Warren in some respects. This is so Hillary Clinton with a lack of charisma. You know what I mean? It's just so bad. That's why Democrats lose. Finally going to live up to the grifter allegations? Dude, oh my God, dude. I could be so good. Republican Party, I could be so good to you. You don't even understand.
Own government. So me as the nominee, we will not let them run circles around us. If there is ballot, Florida, we ban ballot harvesting, right? I think that's what you should do. If there is ballot harvesting that's allowed, and like
he's still going, brother, he is still going. He hasn't stopped. This is like 4-minute answer for a yes or no.
Nevada, we are going to do it too. We're not going to fight with one hand tied behind our backs. And so I think all of those issues were very problematic. But at the end of the day, you know, Donald Trump helped facilitate that whole set of circumstances.
Okay, but respectfully...
Motherfucker even said problematic, okay? It's done. Those issues are problematic.
You did not clearly answer that question. And if you can't give a yes or no on
Because-
whether or not Trump lost, then how
Well,
can...
of course, no.
I'd argue 2016 was important. I'm not a Hillary Rodham Clinton fan, but the bench looks different in the world. Brother, I didn't say the 2016 election wasn't important. You misunderstood what I said entirely. I said the 2016 election was important, and that's precisely why we should have never had Hillary Rodham Clinton as the Democratic Party's candidate. That's the problem, that there is truth to elections being important. I'm not sitting here and saying they're just completely unimportant no matter what. Of course there's importance to it. Even if there are marginal deviations from one candidate to the next, those differences in legislation lead to gigantic problems for a lot of people, okay? A lot of people that especially are in like marginalized groups. Of course. Let's continue.
Of course he lost.
Trump lost the 2020 election.
Of course,
Okay.
Joe Biden's the president. But the issue is, I think what...
Done. Wrong. Donald Trump is the president. Wrong. Wrong. Get the fuck out of here. Saying wrong Desantis, little Rhonda, wrong again, Rhino wrong, Ron Democrat Desantis, thinking he can avoid the top of the hour when there's a 3-minute ad break. Wrong. You can't avoid it unless you subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. You can also get gifted a sub. It's like a super PAC, folks. Big gifters all around. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Little Rhonda. He's so tiny, folks. He's 5'0". Duo Max 95. Thank you for the 5. Get the subs.
But what people in the media and elsewhere, they want to act like somehow this was just like the perfect election. And when you have mass ballot harvesting, Zuckerberg put hundreds of millions of dollars into nonprofits to send money to election offices and basically weaponize the election offices. That is not the way you conduct it.
It's also like the lamest ways in which he's like attacking this point. Just like, oh, they're doing ballot harvesting. I promise. Shut up. What exactly is ballot harvesting? Is it just getting more people to vote? I don't get what the problem is with that. No, ballot harvesting is actually a somewhat controversial method, but it's when you, I don't know how to describe it. It's when you harvest the ballot. It's when you go and get big groups of voters and collect all of their votes and then dump it. Dump it as in like cast it. You pick someone else's ballots for them. Like you pick a major group of people's votes, and then you vote on their behalf. Technically, it's not really, but yeah, exactly. It's basically when you go door to door to pick up absentee ballots that people have completed on their own but forgot to mail. Yeah, of course they still filled it out themselves. No. There have been instances, ironically, where ballot harvesting has actually been problematic, except famously, it's happened, and you might be shocked to find out, with Republicans in North Carolina. So, like, where it turns into fraud. Where they'll go to Democrat neighborhoods, pick up the ballots, and then dump them. Shocking, I know. You didn't run the ad break role-playing as the student who tells the teacher they assign homework? No, I did. I ran it. But thank you. Yeah, they actually, as Michael from Pennsylvania is saying in the chat, is correct. They actually stole an election and got caught because the results were thrown out. The disparity was so insane that they were like, oh, there's a major discrepancy here. We need to look a little bit further into this. And then they realized, oh, they just like took a bunch of ballots and then dumped them like from Democrat neighborhoods.
Elections, and so I don't think it was a good run election, but I also think Republicans didn't fight back. You've got to fight back when that is happening, and you shouldn't have provided all the money to fund the mail-in ballots.
And the reason I press on that is because you make a lot of arguments about the culture of
as in the trash. I don't remember the exact details. I think it was in a river, maybe. It was something stupid. Like, I don't think they, like, threw it in an incinerator or anything. I think they, like, actually found the ballots later on. Like, I think they genuinely dumped it in, like, a ditch or something. What the fuck was it? It was, like, something incredibly stupid. Four people pleaded guilty in North Carolina ballot probe of 2016-2018 elections. After the allegations surfaced in 2018, the Elections Board voted unanimously to order a new election in the state's 9th congressional district. Superior Court Judge Paul Ridgway accepted the plea agreements in Wake County Court, which resulted in no active prison or jail times. Cases against 6 other defendants remain pending, with hearings scheduled through the end of next month. They pleaded guilty to misdemeanors for their roles in the absentee ballot fraud in rural North Carolina, which resulted in a do-over. Oh, he also died. Yeah, Dowless was also indicted on a dozen or more state charges, with his case scheduled last year to go to trial last month. He rejected a plea agreement and looked forward to his day in court, and then he died. So he couldn't get his day in court. But allegations against Dowless surfaced, and testimony and other information revealed at a state board of elections hearing described him running an illegal ballot harvesting operation for the 2018 general election in Bladen County. In it, according to testimony, Dowless and his helpers gathered up hundreds of absentee ballots from voters by offering to put them in the mail. Some of workers said they were directed to collect blank or incomplete ballots, forge signatures on them, or even fill in votes for local candidates. It is generally against the law in North Carolina for anyone other than the voter or a family member to handle someone's completed ballot. Felony obstruction of justice, possessing an illegal absentee ballot that belonged to someone else. Wasn't this the one? This is the one, right? Or am I thinking of a different one? Dallas paid her $100 for every 20 completed absentee ballot request form and $5 for every completed absentee ballot she collected. The legal case for the defense were delayed. Dallas pleaded guilty. Isn't this the one? Or didn't they end up dumping some of the votes? Am I misremembering this? Update. Photos of absentee ballots found in Outagamie County ditch released. Nope. But this is in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin's top election officials the mail, which was discovered in a ditch outside of Appleton last week. Megan Wolf, administrator for the Wisconsin Elections Commission, said that the investigation is still ongoing. She does not know if the ballots from another state were in the mail. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service says it is unable to comment.
The photos make it so funny. There was a different one where they dumped in a ditch. Yeah, I mean, it's not even a ditch, dog. What the fuck happened there? Okay, listen. Anyway, this was a different one. I love that there's a slideshow too. It makes it so much better. All right, let's get back to little Rhonda. Rizless.
Losing in the Republican
I have to
Party.
pee.
And to be clear, you do believe that Donald Trump